Councilman Holmes or Councilman Jones, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Councilwoman Peters, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hang in there, folks. We're trying. Maybe that update is due that you spoke of for our remote meeting coming up. That's right. I'm waiting for command here, so hang tight. My computer screen just brightened. Flickering now. Councilwoman Peters, this is Britt. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Great. Councilman Holmes, can you hear me now?
I can, Mayor Pro Tem.
And Councilman Jones, can you?
Yes, sir.
All right, we are all present and accounted for. We'll jump right into the agenda. The first item today is 2021-110. It's a contract concerning North State Water and Sewer, and our presenter is Trevor Spencer.
Good afternoon. This is an annual bid that Public Services puts out every year for general water and sewer scheduled maintenance and emergency repairs. This contract is necessary to help supplement Water Sewer Mains Division with this type of work. At the March 4th bid opening, there were 3 responsive bidders. North State Water and Sewer Incorporated was the low bidder. After reference checks, we have found that they were able to perform in other locations, and they are a qualified bidder, so we do recommend award of this contract at $836,975.
Okay, thank you. Is there any comments or questions on this item for Mr. Spencer? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to approve item 2021-110.
Second, Councilman Jones.
A second by Councilman Jones. Councilwoman Peters, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Holmes?
Aye.
Councilman Jones?
Aye.
Councilman Moore is an aye. That motion passes. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
The next item, 2021-111, is a RFQ concerning our City Lake Park Phase 1, and Mr. Lee Tillery is stepping up to explain.
Good afternoon. Before you on this particular agenda item is a recommendation for a construction manager at risk for our City Lake Park Phase 1 renovation project, just one project. We, in February, began working with our purchasing department to request qualifications or RFQs. We submitted or sent this out. We had 7 firms submit their information to us. We then formed an internal committee within the city to review those 7 different firms. We broke those down to 4 for interview. And today we're here to recommend Samet Corporation out of Greensboro as our construction manager at risk on this project. We're just bringing the recommendation to you guys today or this coming Monday for approval, and we'll be coming back to you guys with GMP information with their contract for the project, hopefully early May.
Okay, so early May, your time, and to remind folks, this is part of the bond package that was voted on
Yes,
last
sir.
election. So good to see us getting moving on that. Any questions for Mr. Tillery?
Hey, Lee, it's Councilman Holmes. What was I know Salmon is a pretty big company. What was really the determining factor? Was it just their ability to overall manage the project, or what were some of the deciding factors in how you guys, just for the public, to go about choosing who we're going to work with as a city? I know I get a lot of requests from constituents that are interested in this process, and I don't want to belay this a long time, but if you could just kind of quickly go through the decision-making process of how you guys come to deciding on the contract.
Yeah, absolutely. We went through a pretty thorough process, Councilman, and we had time to review all their their information when they sent it in. We're able to break it down specifically to Salmon, and I could go back to some of the scoring, but as I recall, their MWBI was extremely impressive in some of the statistics they brought to us on past projects and what they could do here with City Lake. Their ability, being local, and their ability to hire or subcontract with local contractors was definitely a positive factor in their scoring as well. Their presentation to us was pretty complete. They had good working knowledge of the project, obviously a good working knowledge of the city and some of the other projects we have going on. So they presented well with their presentation, and they hit a lot of high points, good understanding of the project, scored well in a lot of categories. I will say we had some great firms that were interested, and we had of the ones that presented, they all did an excellent job. But Salmon really stood out above the rest of them, and they stood out with most all of our members of our committee.
Great, thank you. For some smaller firms out there who may be looking to do business with the city, what is the best way for those firms to go about getting in the pool to receive some city contracts?
On this particular one, there's several areas of the project that obviously will need to involve subcontractors. I'm not sure the best way for them to reach out, but I can certainly get you a little bit more information on that as we begin working with Salmon.
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you, Lee.
I believe one of the managers is also going to speak to that. Give us 1 second, Councilman Holmes.
Absolutely.
Meadow, Assistant Manager. One of the things that potential contractors can do is contact Samet. I know Samet will have a process that they'll go through to select some of their subcontractors, as well as go on our website, our purchasing department website, to get information on how to participate and be on the list per se to have knowledge of some of our upcoming jobs or contracts that are coming out.
Thank you, Eric.
Is there anything else? Hearing none, I will make the motion that item 2021-111 be approved.
Second.
Second.
I'll take Councilman Holmes on the second this time. I'll catch you soon, Ms. Peters. Kind of tough with everybody remote, but I understand. Glad you're here. So we'll vote on this item. Councilwoman Peters, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Holmes?
Aye.
Councilman Jones?
Aye.
Councilman Moore is an aye. That motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Tillery. The next item, 2021-112, is a contract concerning Arnold Coontz City Lake Dam and some engineering work in that area. Terry Hauk, are you joining us? Terry Hauk, have you joined us? Is there anyone here that can speak on Terry's behalf, or we need a second to check with our IT in the back to?
Ask him to unmute.
Terry, are you muted? Terry Hauk, if you are muted, can you unmute?
Stand by 1 moment, please.
Good afternoon. This is Terry. You hear me now?
We got you. Go ahead.
I had to move to another computer. Mine's not working for some reason. I had to go to Derek Boone's computer. This is a probable maximum precipitation PMP study for an evaluation for the rehab alternative for Ulmer Coots and City Lake Dam to Snobble Engineering. We wish to contract with Snobble Engineering to perform engineering services associated with the evaluations of alternatives to upgrade the dam to meet NC DEQ dam safety requirements. As you know, the dam is nearly 100 years old and was constructed before modern dam safety standards were developed. As such, it does not meet the current dam safety requirements for stability or spillway capacity and has several other dam-related deficiencies. The scope of the project is to prepare a PMP study, develop updated values for use on the basis and analyzing and developing alternatives to upgrade the dam to meet the dam safety requirements and for use in future design of the selected alternative. Public Service Department recommends approval and asks council to award the professional engineering services to Snobble Engineering PC in the amount of $92,500.
Questions for Mr. Howe? Mr. Howe, this is Britt Moore. Is there a time frame for beginning and completion of this type of work from the state DEQ?
What we told the state that we intended to be at least start the dam by 2023, but we believe this study will actually give us more time to review our alternatives. There's two alternatives to, for lack of a better term, upgrade and repair the existing dam, and there's another alternative to actually build another dam downstream of the existing dam.
Okay, that sounds like a job.
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll make the motion to approve item 2021-112. Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Councilman Jones. I think Monica got that one.
Second, Councilwoman Peters. We'll call the vote. Councilwoman Peters, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Holmes, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Jones, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Moore votes aye. That motion passes. The next item, 2021-113, is a change order request for our Riverside Sewer Lift Station. Mr. Houck?
Yes, sir, I'm here. It's the Riverdale Sewer Lift Station, and it was declared a pressing needs repair when we started, and we hired Charles Underwood Incorporated to do some repairs out there. We're requesting that you approve change order 1 to Underwood Incorporated for additional materials and works outside the scope of a work for the pressing needs repair to the existing pumps in the dry well side of the Riverdale pump station. Phase 1 was an expansion of the Riverdale pump station and basically the rehab of the flooded sections. The 3 existing 10 MGD hydrostall pumps were installed in '96 and were not replaced as part of the upgrade. After the pump station was brought online, we observed significant vibration from the pumps and also discovered the 18-inch discharge valves for the pumps were not holding. We hired Charles Underwood under a pressing needs to perform work on the three pumps, including fabricating, installed, and restrained supports and replacing the existing 18-inch discharge valve. The amount of the PO was $89,900. Change orders for additional items required to complete the project, including replacing of drive shafts for number 2 and number 3. Number 2 and number 3 pumps are VFDs, and after examination and in contact with the manufacturer, because they're VFDs, these shafts need to be oversized versus the standard shaft that's in there. So we got to upgrade the shafts. As you remember, it's public services thought and belief that the dry well flooded because of a vibration that sheared the bolts off the pump and allowed water to flow back into the dry well. Public Services recommends that council approve the change order number 1 to Charles Underwood in the amount of $41,512, increasing the contract to $131,012.
Thank you, Mr. Hout. Do you have any questions for Terry Hout, council? Hearing none, I'll make the motion to approve item 2021-113. Is there a second?
Second,
Second.
Councilman Jones.
Councilman Jones is on the second. We'll call the vote. Councilwoman Peters, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Holmes?
Aye.
Councilman Jones?
Aye.
Councilman Moore is an aye. That motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Hout.
You're welcome.
The next item, 2021-114, is a resolution of a nuclear decommissioning fund. Manager Randy McCaslin is presenting.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you're aware, the city of High Point is a member of Agency 1, which is a part of Electricities of North Carolina. And by being part of Electricities, we are part owner in the Catawba Nuclear Power Plant. Being owners, having ownership in the plant requires us to set aside, not the city, but Electricities, requires Electricities to set aside funds for the eventual decommissioning of the nuclear power plant, which right now is licensed through, I believe it's 2045. So these funds, ever since the power plant has been open, we through the Electricities has been setting aside funds for the eventual decommissioning of that plant. Electricities, because they have a major impact on the finances of the cities that are members in Electricities, thus falls under the Local Government Commission and must abide by state of North Carolina laws in regards to how they invest their funds. Electricities, like most of the cities in North Carolina, are restricted by that state law to very conservative instruments of finance and get very low interest rates with on those investments. The Treasurer's Office, however, a few years back was able to get a bill through the General Assembly that allowed them to invest in more, let's say, riskier or higher performing instruments, and thus can achieve for our retirement systems and other monies that they reinvest for the state. They get a higher interest rate than we can in most years. What the Electricities is asking, and they have a local bill pending now in the General Assembly, is to be able to use those same less conservative financial instruments that the Treasurer's Office is using to invest the decommissioning funds. Long term, that should result in higher interest rates, and thus we will have to put less money into the fund to cover the eventual decommissioning of the power plant. So we are presenting this resolution to you in support of that local bill that Electric Cities is trying to move through the General Assembly at this time.
So this is a vote on the legislation in support of it.
That's correct.
Is the funds themselves over time, I mean, you're talking another 20-some years, who is in charge or what entity's in charge of investing that money? Where does it stop and they say, okay, this is going here and there or whatever? The
Electric Cities is responsible for the investment of the funds. They are following federal guidelines in having to set these monies aside and the amount of monies required. And I think that's done by some kind of audit, probably not every year, but every few years, that determines the amount of funds that have to go into that decommissioning fund. So they determine the amount, but they also determine the investment, whether it's the conservative or the more risky or whatever. Right now, Electric Cities has to follow the same rules that our finance department has to follow. But the state treasurer's office has the authority to use other instruments that can bring in more interest and with those same funds. That's correct. Okay. Any other comments or questions for Manager McCaslin?
This is Councilman Jones. Where does that put us? I mean, if there's another recession or something and the market takes a huge dive, that money still has to be spent to decommission that nuclear reactor. Does that just put us in a slightly higher risky situation if things were to go in a bad direction?
Well, Councilman Jones, the Electric Cities uses financial advisors just like the treasurer's office does. So if they anticipate, a downturn in the economy, their investments will become more conservative. But when the economy is doing decent, as it is now, the returns on investment would be greater by using these other instruments that the treasurer's office is currently using now for the investment of retirement funds and other state surplus funds.
All right, thank you.
Anyone else? Hearing none, I'll make the motion that item 2021-114 be approved.
Second, Jones.
Second by Councilman Jones. Call the roll. Councilwoman Peters, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Holmes?
Aye.
Councilman Jones?
Aye.
Councilman Moore is an aye. That motion passes. Next item, 2021-115. It's our independent audit services with Cherry Beckert. Bobby Fitzjohn is here to talk about that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm here with staff's recommendation on the selection of our independent auditor. This will cover the fiscal years 2021 through 2023 with 2 additional years if the auditor and staff agree on a price. This last went out to bid in February 2015. At that point, council made the decision to switch auditors to Cherry Beckert from McGladrey. If any of you were on the board at that time, you might remember McGladrey, who then became RSM, who is now PB Mayers, who is included in this as well. A little transition there. We submitted our RFP to 34 accounting firms that are listed with the LGC's, that's on the LGC's list of eligible auditors or current auditors in the state. We received 8 submissions back. An evaluation committee was formed. The submissions were in 2 sections. The first was primarily focused on prior governmental experience and qualifications of the firm, who they would assign to the audit, what their experience was. And then the second section focused on cost and audit approach and could they meet our timelines The first section produced 3 outstanding proposals from Cherry Beckert, Elliott Davis, and PB Mayers. The second section, when we took into account cost and audit approach and timeline, the evaluation committee chose Cherry Beckert out of those last 3. The second page of the memo lists out the costs that were included in the proposal, as well as the estimated hours. You will notice that Cherry Beckert is not the lowest cost offer, but when you compare the estimated hours, staff felt that very low number of estimated hours was likely unreasonable for an audit of our type. You can see PB Mayers, who has experience auditing other cities our size, had a pretty similar number of estimated hours that Cherry Beckert had. Overall, we feel that continuing our contract with Cherry Beckert will lead to continuing to meet our deadlines with the state of October 31st, as well as keep challenging staff to produce the best financials that we can. So the Financial Services Department is recommending that City Council award the contract for independent audit services to Cherry Beckert for the following 3 years at a total contract amount of $228,000 with 2 optional renewal years. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Fitzjohn? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to approve item 2021-115. Is there a second?
Second, Holmes.
There's a second by Councilman Holmes. I'll call the vote. Councilwoman Peters, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Holmes.
Aye.
Councilman Jones.
Aye.
Councilman Moore is an aye. That item passes. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
The last item is 2021-129. It's a sole source contract concerning some room security and soundproofing at the High Point Police Department facility, the new one that will be coming online soon. The presenter is Police Chief Stroud. Are you with us?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for joining us. Go right ahead.
I appreciate you having me. We're asking City Council to approve a sole source contract with Carolina Video Security Incorporated. The amount will be for $33,400 for hardware, software that'll be installed in our new police facility on Westchester. We currently have CVSI at the 1009 Leonard Avenue location in 2 of our two interview rooms we have. We're going to be moving that hardware to the new building, to the interview rooms on the first floor, and then installing 3 completely new hardware on additional floors. We're asking to go with CVI or for Mayor, and we're already going to move the equipment from here.
Are there any questions on this item? Hearing none, I will make the proposal to approve item 2021-129. Is there a second?
Second, Jones.
Councilman Jones makes the second. I'll call the vote. Councilwoman Peters, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Holmes, how do you vote?
Aye.
Councilman Jones?
Aye.
Councilman Moore is an aye. That motion passes. Anything else that needs to come before the Finance Committee today? I would just like to wish everybody a safe and blessed and happy Easter season. Enjoy the cold snap and then the warm snap right behind it. Is there anyone opposed to adjournment of this meeting? Hearing none.